MashaAllah, that was beautiful. Thank you so much. We have Sister Masuma joining us once again, and we're going to be speaking about Shia Sunni commemorations. Assalamu alaikum, Sister Masuma.
Assalamu wa rahmatullah.
Inshallah, you're well.
Alhamdulillah. How about yourself?
Alhamdulillah, well, thank you. So we have another question, and it's from a revert, previously a Sunni and has now become a Shia, and says, it feels like I'm learning Islam all over again due to how many new things I have come across since reverting. Could you please shed some light on your understanding of why some Sunni Muslims do not commemorate the martyrdom of Imam Hussein, peace be upon him, in the way that Shias do? Is it because they have different hadith books? And obviously enjoying the show and thanking you for your input. I am new to Islam, so it's an anonymous Canada. So what would you...
Okay, so I think one of the things to realize is, although the split is something that is historical, due to who people followed after the Shahada of the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him and his family, it has a lot of fiqh implications as well, because obviously who you followed decided who would then make the rules and regulations and so forth, because we've got to realize that when the Holy Prophet was there, it was only for 23 years. So there was a lot of new things that were coming into Islam, which then had to, rulings had to be made on. So there are differences in fiqh as well. So it's not just the commemoration, but it's also the fiqh issues as well come into it as well. So it does feel like you're actually, coming into something new,
right.
Which it shouldn't, because you think, well, I'm still a Muslim.
Yes.
But there are, differences in fiqh and everything as well. I think Muharram, it actually does play out quite differently.
Yeah.
Because the Shias obviously are mourning and commemorating the martyrdom.
It's a very visual commemeration,
yes,
isn't it?
Very much so.
And it's not something equivalent, I think, that the Sunnis...
Well, the Sunnis tend to sort of look at, they're actually looking more at gratitude at that time, because they have hadiths within their book which talk about when the Holy Prophet entered Medina, he saw that the Jews in Medina were fasting. So he asked them, and this is in Bukhari, where he asks them why they're fasting, what is this? And they said that it's the day when Prophet Musa and the Israelites were saved when the sea was split.
And this is the 10th of Muharram, isn't it?
On the day of Ashura, so the Holy Prophet said, oh, that's a really good thing. And so he decided to fast, and he encouraged the Muslims to fast. Now, we don't have these hadiths within our books. And the reason, first, before I go into this hadith, let's look at the reason why there are differences in hadith. Okay, so after the death of the Holy Prophet, hadith was banned from being written according to the Khilafah at that time. And according to the Shias, under the guidance of Imam Ali alayhi salam, they were encouraged to continue writing, because that's what the Holy Prophet had encouraged. So Imam Ali alayhi salam continued the encouragement of continuing to write hadith, but it was done private, secretly, because openly it was something that was banned. So from the death of from the Shahada of the Holy Prophet till I think it was 101 AH, at the time of the Khilafah of Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, where he then said no, hadith should be written, and then he started allowing the writing of hadith. So you think in all those years, how many hadiths were lost, how many were misquoted, how many were then made up when they started writing. So we have a lot of hadiths within the books which are not considered as authentic, because the chain of narration doesn't go all the way to the Prophet, because the actual text doesn't go according to what the Holy Quran would say. So there's a whole ilmul hadith, which is the science of hadith, where people look into the people who have narrated this hadith, people what the actual hadith says, whether it makes sense. So when you look at this specific hadith, which is in Bukhari, according to the what the scholars will say is that, first of all, the Holy Prophet did not enter Medina in Muharram, so that doesn't make sense that he entered and he saw the Jews fasting. And also the fact that he did not know why they were fasting, and he asked them, and then when they told him, he said, oh, that's a good idea, let me do that. Again, that is not the status of the Holy Prophet. When the Holy Prophet told people to do something, or he did something, it came directly from Allah. He only did what he was told to by Allah, not by the people. So because of those things, we don't accept those hadiths to be authentic. Obviously the Sunnis do, and that's why then they fast on the day of Ashura. And because they're looking at...
Every year it's a contentious issue, isn't it?
Yes, and because they're looking at something that is a good thing that they happen, then they will concentrate on gratitude rather than mourning. I suppose one of the things to think about is, okay, Prophet, if it is true that this is the day that Prophet Musa and the Israelites were saved, great, but this was also the day that the grandson of the Holy Prophet was slaughtered by Muslims. Now, which one would the Holy Prophet consider as more heavier? How many hadiths did the Holy Prophet speak about Prophet Musa, and how many hadiths did he speak about Imam Hussein alayhi salam? The fact that he said he is from me and I am from him, the fact that he says that he is the Hassan and Hussein are the youth of paradise. So there are so many hadiths again within the Sunni books as well as the Shia books which tell you the status of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. And it wasn't that he was killed by non-Muslims. I think the greatest lesson of Karbala is that these were people who were praying, who were reciting Quran. Some of them were actually Hafiz of Quran, and yet they could do something so awful.
And I think also that I come from a place, I live where there's majority Sunni Muslims. My family have a lot of Sunni Muslims in it. So we see, I don't know about other cultures, Sunnis also have a lot of variance in their community as well. So friends of my family, my children, they will be Sunnis, but they will have a lot of respect for Ahlul Bayt. So South Asia, for instance, has this respect. Even Hindus commemorate. So it's not, I think we can't say it's blanket wide all Sunnis anyway. But I guess it depends on what kind of family someone has come from. If it's completely just, of the school that there is fast and forget that this historical event happened. But I think something that we can really unite on is the fact that, as you said, it's the grandson of the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him. We don't dispute the Prophet's position, and like you said, it's his grandson. So no
and
matter
the status that the Prophet gave to the grandson is huge, and the fact that he was, and the fact that this was done to him by Muslims. I think that's a huge learning for all of us who claim to be Muslims. It's like, how do I know that I'm not going to go so off route that I do something like that?
Absolutely, and I think it's quite scary that you think before if you get into the habit of not understanding and recognizing truth from falsehood, it becomes very jarred and cloudy, and then you could get to that point before you know it, that you're on the wrong side of history, and your actions are going to be speaking for the worst of you. Sunnis do commemorate Imam Hussein's Shahada, and I know that, so for instance, in people I know that are Sunnis, they will even attend majalis, some of them, out of respect because of their love for the Holy Prophet. And there are differences in how people commemorate, and I don't know what your experiences are.
I think there is differences within the Shia world as well. So I think mourning is a very personal thing, and I don't think you can tell another human being how they should mourn. I think the idea is to actually remember what happened, and it's important to remember so that history doesn't play out again, and the same thing doesn't happen again. And that's the lessons that we need to learn from history, and that's why it's really important not to forget these lessons. So yes, the Sunnis do, and I think the problem is we Shias seem to think that Imam Hussein is for us only. And I think that's something that we need to sort of step back from and say, no, Imam Hussein was not even for Muslims, he was for humanity.
It's universal.
And it's the lessons that are learnt in Karbala is for the whole of humanity. It's not just it's not a Sunni Shia thing, it's not a Muslim non-Muslim thing, it's actually a human thing. It's there are so many lessons, and you see that. It's like the whole Who's Hussein campaign. There are so many people who've connected to Hussein, Imam Hussein alayhi salam, because of what he stood for. The whole idea of standing against oppression, the whole idea of standing for truth, and all of that is things that I think everyone relates to.
Absolutely.
So I think it's important for Shias to actually talk about Imam Hussein alayhi salam, and the lessons that come from Imam Hussein's stand in Karbala, rather than just keeping it to our mosques.
What stands out for you, sort of something that touches your heart to his message? Because every period as we're progressing, it means more, it means different things. What would you say it feels for you?
I think the greatest lesson for me, like I said, is that Muslims who claim to be Muslims did something like this and went so off course. But the actual stand of Imam Hussein alayhi salam would be to stand up for the truth. I think that is, you know, a lot of the times we know what the truth is, but because we're in the minority or because, you know, it's difficult, we sort of step back and we think
it takes courage, doesn't it?
And the, you know, Imam Hussein alayhi salam sort of showed us that it doesn't matter how many people there are. It really, you know, if you've got God on your side, that's all that matters.
But as Imam Ali says, that the truth left me with few friends, and that's why, because it's never going to be a popular path, is it? And it's quite amazing, as you say, that, you know, how majority on the day of Ashura there were the troops that were, you know, prepared to, you know, kill, and they did kill Imam Hussein alayhi salam, and yet they thought they were on the path of truth. That you know, the azan went off, and you know, who were they commemorating? But I just wanted to quickly touch on, so this a revert, so it doesn't matter, it's from which background they've come into Shia Islam. And I was just thinking, so perhaps where they would get, so not everybody can travel, some people are quite isolated and they've learned through Imam Hussein, like the campaign you're saying, Who is Hussein, through online activity. So they could be very isolated in a community in far back America or wherever in the world. So do you think that some of the resources they could possibly use, just thinking that probably, what kind of books would you say? Would you think go back to sort of children books? It's very basic knowledge for them. How would you recommend that they read more and learn more about Imam Hussein?
I think we all need to learn more about Imam Hussein alayhi salam. I think a lot of us know the event of Karbala, and that's all we think about when we think about Imam Hussein alayhi salam. But he is so much more than that as well. It's like, you know, he was the Imam for a period of time before Karbala happened, and you know, and the way he handled himself, when his brother was the Imam, you know, how he was as a child, again, you know, growing up in the house of Bibi Fatima and Imam Ali alayhi salam. It's like all of these things are you know, lessons we can learn from. There are lots and lots of books, and
so it's almost like you're saying we should all really look at ourselves as reverts. Nobody's an expert, are they?
Not at all. And I think you know, we concentrate on the day of Karbala, you know, on the day of Ashura. Sorry, the events of Karbala on the day of Ashura, and I think before Muharram starts, we need to prepare ourselves and actually build our connection with Imam Hussein alayhi salam by knowing him a little bit more than we know him. You know him in a way that, you know, I know him and I know how he would act in this situation. I can actually quote parts of his life so I can try to emulate them in my life. So that when I'm actually hearing the events of Ashura happening, you know, and how he's reacting in some of his speeches and things, I can actually connect to them much, much more, because now I know him as a person instead of just an idea of Imam Hussein that I've grown up with.
Inshallah, we'll have to cover the topic of perhaps the educational resources at another time. Thank you so much. It's been enlightening again, once again. And up next we have Mini Husseinis.